Hello everybody, I'm Raphael Perry and it's time for some more Lone Wolf. In our last episode we found a way down, far underground, below, my lad. If you don't get the reference, that's because you watched the films and didn't read the book. Here you go. And we found our way into an underground cavern system. Well, there's still plenty of snow and ice. Did we fall? We may have fallen into a deeper passage and landed. Oh, now I'm trying to. But either way, we're now underground with no foreseeable way back. Our mission is to still capture Vonotar the traitor, and while he has inveigled his way into the ice fortress of Ikaya, usurping the role of the Brumalmark from what we have heard internationally, our battle is with him. It's not with the ice barbarians who stand by his side, so if we can avoid wantonly slaughtering them, I shall endeavour to do so. However, I may need to make an excess killing this episode. We'll have to wait and see. I might actually get a little creative and show off the reason why I may need to make this. After a few hundred yards, you find yourself in a huge cavern that spreads out in all directions as far as the eye can see. You have entered the caverns of Kalte and are now looking for an uncharted world that few Somblending have ever seen. This massive underground labyrinth was constructed by the ancients many ages before the Somblending set foot in Magnamund. Its wide avenues, temples and arenas once echoed to the sounds of a race of creatures for whom the ice was a natural home. Mlar bowls still hang from the ceiling, bathing the caverns in their eternal light. Almost like some kind of strange light-emitting technology that dangles from the ceiling that the current natives of the world in this new dark age do not fully understand yet. You trek steadily northwards for nearly 6 hours until you arrive at the bank of a fast-flowing meltwater river. On the opposite bank you see a tunnel leading off into the distance. You can find no apparent way of crossing the deep water except by using the ice floes bobbing up and down on the surface. By jumping from one floe to the next you could get to the opposite bank, but it will not be easy. You will have to jump at least 3 of the icy slabs to reach the other side. Pick a number from random number table. If you have the Kai discipline of hunting, you may add 2 to the number you have picked. If your current endurance points total is 8 or less, deduct 2 from the number you have picked. We do have the discipline of hunting, and we gained it specially for this book, so it is coming in useful. Additionally, our current endurance total is 24, so we are rolling a d10 plus 2. Our total is therefore a 9. Excellent. Running for the tunnel entrance, you quickly leave the icy river far behind. You follow the tunnel for countless hours as it bends its way northwards. It becomes impossible to recall what hour of the day it is. The perpetual half-light of these caverns never changes. Through fissures in the wall of the tunnel you catch glimpses of other chambers, and you marvel at the sheer scale of the labyrinth. You are nearly asleep on your feet when you suddenly detect the aroma of cooked meat. It is coming from a chamber just a few yards ahead to your right. You are very hungry and must soon eat. Let us investigate the chamber. And this is where playing the character rather than playing the adventure may get me killed. You can see two men in ragged clothes huddled together beside a fire that seems to be burning inside a small metal bowl. Over the flames, the skinned carcass of a small animal is roasting on a spit. The men are old and toothless, and they have a strange glint of madness in their slanted eyes. This is the very first illustration in the book, if you are reading the sections in numerical order. We can approach them and ask them for some of their food, attack them, or ignore them and continue on their way. Now, my preferred path through this adventure would involve approaching them and asking for some of their food. However, this would then lead to a combat with a... what's 40% of 40%? It's a very low number, right? It's going to be less than 20%, I can tell you that. With a less than 20% chance of survival. Might be like 16% or something. It's not great. But I will just pretend for now that Alice is messing with the fabric of reality. And all apologies to Quinifer from a previous episode. Alice is the bitch no one likes who messes with everything. She has a few fans. And for some reason they put her in the bloody board game as a character just to really mess up everything. Okay, so we will peek at this section. On seeing you enter, the two old men jump to their feet and flee from the chamber along a smaller passageway. Their screams of panic echo loudly throughout the caverns, and probably raise the alarm. I'm going to ignore the rest of this section because we will go back and take the other choice. We will attack them. The two men stare at you in horror and fumble for their weapons. You have killed one of them before the other attempts to fight back. He is desperate and attacks you with great fury. You will have to fight him to the death. He has a combat skill of 15 and an endurance of 14. Well then. We have a shockingly high combat skill of 29. So we are rolling in the plus 11 or greater column. Let's just zoom out a little so we get the whole table on there. Throw a d10. We get a 10, which actually counts as a 10 on the combat table. Enemy killed, lone wolf takes no damage. So he grabs his weapon, rises furiously, and we just slash across his chest, send him hurtling down, blood spurting from the wound as his head cracks open. And now you make a quick search of the bodies and discover that one of them has a triangle of blue stone hanging by a chain around his neck. If you wish to keep this item, put the chain around your neck and mark it as a special item on your action chart. The rest of this, pretty much the same as the other section where they run away. In fact, you're very hungry. I'm just checking, is it actually still burns inside if you wish to keep. Okay, so this becomes a separate paragraph in the other section. Now, there will come a time when we will absolutely require that blue stone triangle. However, should we not have it upon our person, another far more dangerous opportunity will arise for us to obtain one. And when the time comes, I will show you that far more dangerous opportunity and demonstrate why I have not taken that action on this playthrough. I would vastly prefer to scare them away and obtain the bluestone triangle the other way. However, If you've played the series, you probably know what I'm referring to, especially if you know this book well. And if not, hey, I'll bring it up when the time comes anyway. You are very hungry and quickly consume the cooked animal, pausing only to spit out its bones. Then you notice that the fire is burning in a strange, half-spherical metal bowl. The other half of the sphere lies on the icy floor nearby. You find that both halves fit together perfectly. When you open them, you discover that the fire still burns inside. If you wish to keep this fire sphere, put it inside your jacket and mark it on your action chart as a special item. The Kalte fire sphere is one of the most useful items in this series, at least in the first 9 books. By which I do not necessarily mean that it is of the greatest use in any single situation, but it is one of the most frequently available for use items. There are many situations in which having it is helpful. You finish the last scraps of food and return to the tunnel. Unless you have eaten, you must lose 3 endurance points from hunger. We've eaten. According to the Collector's Edition, if you currently possess enough food for 1 meal, you may now consume it in order to avoid this endurance point deduction. We do have enough food for 1 meal, but we have eaten a meal, so we do not need to consume it. This is a variation on you must now eat a meal or lose 3 endurance points, because we may have just eaten one. You continue along the tunnel for over a mile, but you soon become tired and stop to sleep. You awake feeling refreshed, but have no idea just how long you have been sleeping. The light of these caverns never changes, be it night or day. You continue onwards, mile after mile, passing through a series of huge ice halls containing towering pillars of crystal. In one vast chamber, you are mesmerized by the beautiful sight of a shimmering crystal ceiling. But beyond this chamber lies an even greater spectacle. A narrow passage leads on to a ledge running around the brink of a huge chasm over half a mile wide. As you edge your way along this awesome void, you try not to look down into its windswept depths many miles below. You have been on the ledge for only a few minutes when a noise behind you makes you glance back. To your horror, you see you're being followed by a monstrous 2-headed serpent. You recognize the serpent to be a Javek, a 2-headed and deadly poisonous ice snake. As it slithers nearer, you can clearly see the open jaw of the second head and the yellow curved fangs dripping with venom. It moves very slowly, and you know that you will not be able to outrun it along this narrow edge. We do possess a fire sphere, but first, here's a picture. We shall gaze upon this horrific creature. If we did not have the skill, we'd go straight to combat. Which means, if we did not have the skill of tracking or animal kinship, we would not have the opportunity to use the fire sphere. And here is the Javek itself, slithering upon us, its 2 heads raised, mouths open, tongues are flickering. But we do possess a fire sphere. You remove the fire sphere from your jacket and quickly split open the 2 halves and place them upon the narrow ledge behind. The Javek hisses loudly, both its heads weaving and darting at you in a rage. It is desperate to attack, but it will not approach the fire sphere. Instead, it attempts to slither around the flames, but the ledge is very narrow, no more than a foot wide. It cannot pass without singeing itself. Eventually angry but powerless, the strange reptile resigns itself to failure and disappears back along the ledge and into the passageway beyond. You can now retrieve your fire sphere and continue your exploration. I believe the Mongoose Adventure claims that the fire sphere emits cold flames and its purpose is purely for light. I suppose they didn't want it to be too much of a utility item, or thought players would constantly use it to set fire to things rather than cooking their rations or whatever. But here it is. The serpent may simply believe it to be hot, but the barbarians were cooking with it as well. I think we can safely say the fire within the sphere emits heat. You reach a tunnel on the far side of the chasm and follow it for many miles. You eventually arrive at an enormous chamber, the ceiling of which towers 500 feet above you. An icy wind blowing through the many fissures that crack the ceiling whips around the hall. We can search for a way of climbing up and out of the fissures, or press on and look for an exit on the far side of the hall. Let's look up. If we were injured and our discipline of healing was helping us, this would be a good time to waste some time and get healing. You find that the icy rock face offers many handholds, but you cannot find a secure grip with your fur mittens on. But if you remove your mittens in order to climb, you know that frostbite is inevitable. We could risk our life in our hands and try to climb, or just abandon our climb and continue to search for another way out of this hall. We now have a better view of the situation. You discover a low passage that opens out into a cavern full of stalagmites. There are 2 exits in the opposite ice wall. Both disappear into darkness. In the snow around the entrances to both tunnels are many strange tracks. We do have the discipline of tracking, so we can tell that the tracks are made by dangerous and carnivorous creatures called Baknar. If you run into them in the confines of a dark and narrow tunnel, your chances of survival will be very slim indeed. Although yokai discipline has enabled you to identify the tracks, you are unable to sense which tunnel the Baknar occupy. In which case, fighting fantasy rule, left is best. After a short walk, you arrive at a massive ice hall full of crystal stalagmites and stalactites. The floor is covered with animal tracks and bones, yet the vast hall seems empty and still. You notice that the north wall is a completely smooth surface of granite blocks, stretching upwards to the icy ceiling over 100 feet above. You suddenly realize that you are staring at the foundation stones of Ikaya. You have reached the ice fortress, and I'm pretty sure at least 15 or 20 years ago, fans were making jokes about the Brumal Mark's fortress being called IKEA. I'm not sure that was the original inspiration. I'm not sure we had IKEA in this country when this book came out. And at that time, IKEA wasn't so heavily emphasizing its Swedish culture and heritage as much as it apparently does nowadays. Partially obscured by a large mound of crystals, you can just make out a ramp leading up to a massive stone door in the fortress wall. Your discovery brings renewed hope. If you can gain entry to Ikaya and quickly capture Vonatar, there is still time to reach your ship, the Cardinal, before the ice pack starts to freeze. We can cross the icy hall and examine the stone door, or stop and search the bone-littered floor. That's a lot of bones on the floor, according to the description, so let's have a quick search while we're here. It's not as if the ice is going to crack under us, unless it is, and we're just going to find out. We're here already. That means we've missed at least one encounter down in the caverns. That is upon a sort of lake of ice, with a large monster moving beneath the ice. I don't remember where that is. There are other entrances, and I do think moving across the Lyuk ice shelf to go up the Viad Glacier, I think there's an option to return to the Hrod Basin. So we might have had some more interesting encounters along the way there. Before, it feels like our journey across the snow was very short. And now, our traversal through the ice caverns may be equally short. We shall have to see. You discover that many of the bones scattered around among the stalagmites are of human origin. Shattered skulls, skeletal hands, and rib cages lie half buried in the ice. You are about to abandon your search when a small box made of carved bone catches your eye. Let's open it. The bone box contains a beautiful diamond. Its many facets gleam and sparkle even in the dim half-light of the ice hall. In Sommerlund, a jewel of this size and quality would be worth thousands of crowns. We will take the diamond and put it in our pocket and mark it as a special item. It may be of use later on. We shall have to wait and see. We shall now examine the fortress door. As you climb the slippery stone ramp, the sound of cracking ice makes you spin around. A large mound of crystals at the base of the ramp is beginning to move. The crystals are alive. You stare in disbelief as the mound is transformed into a writhing mass of crystal coils. The coils unwind and the ice creature slithers towards you. We could evade this creature and run towards the stone door, or use the power of the Sword of the Sun against this thing of ice and crystals. And we have the doorway highlighted in the background there behind it. It has got between us somehow. Or it's just iconically framing it. And look at that. It's clearly not just a crystalline creature. There's ice in there as it's very see-through. We can see its internal organs and see through it to the wall and door beyond. Sorry. This strange creature is a crystal frostwyrm, a scavenging beast now living in the remains of the unfortunate... It's not living in the remains of unfortunate creatures. It may be living in the remains of an unfortunate civilization. This strange creature is a crystal frostwyrm, a scavenging beast now living on the remains of the unfortunate creatures that have entered the cavern. Its hard skin is almost transparent and its internal organs can be seen pulsating inside. A large mouth opens in the crystalline head to reveal row upon row of jagged crystal teeth. Your back is pressed to the stone door, and there is no way to evade the monster, so how can we see the door through it? You must fight the creature to the death. It is immune to Mind Blast. It has a combat skill of 15 and an endurance of 30. However, if we roll anything like last time, the battle will be swift indeed. Let's roll. Enemy slain. Lone wolf uninjured. I think we're going to hack into the side of its neck near the head, and it will sink to the ground, and we will hack again a few times to sever that head from its body. As it creaks and cracks and shattering sounds. You watch with a mixture of fascination and revulsion as each segment of the creature shatters and then slowly dissolves into the ice. Soon, all that remains of the crystal frostwyrm are the undigested contents of its stomach. To your surprise, in the centre of this mass of fetid flesh and bone, you can see the shank of an ornate silver key. We will take this key. The key is coated with a corrosive digestive acid that burns through your mittens and attacks your fingers. We'll lose an endurance point. Fine. We have plenty to lose. Nothing to do with Lautrec. You drop the key and plunge your hand into the snow to ease the pain. If you still wish to keep the key, you can wipe it in the snow before placing it in your pocket. Sounds like a good idea. But remember to mark it on your action chart as a special item. Silver. I'd like to point out, every item we have gained this book after the initial equipment section has been a special item and not a backpack item. They do not appear to be many backpack items in Kalte because all the things we would have carried in our backpack were on the sledges earlier on. But now we still don't seem to be able to run into good supplies just yet. You must now find a way of opening the fortress door. Hey look, we went to another section and got our endurance point back again. The fortress door is completely smooth. It has no visible lock, hinge or keyhole. However, turning your attention to the granite wall, you notice that one of the massive blocks is different to all the others. A small triangle has been cut into its surface. We do possess a bluestone triangle, but let us pretend for a moment that we did not. We scared away the old barbarian men, and they took their bluestone triangle with them. You search every square inch of the door and surrounding wall, but there appear to be no unusual features. You're examining the stone ramp when a loud roar freezes your blood. A Kalkoff has entered the ice hall. You turn to see the creature bounding towards you. Its jaws are wide open, revealing its barbed tongue. You cannot evade the Kalkoff, and you must fight it to the death. We may have met the Kalkoff previously in our journey with the guides across the ice shelf or the Hrod Basin. I'm not entirely sure which. The fact we had sixth sense and went outside at night near a rock seemed to scare away whatever evil was nearby. If we did not have that, maybe it would have attacked. The Kalkoff is a deadly enemy, as we are about to discover. It has a combat skill of 10 and an endurance of 28. Its combat skill is very low, which is good because we might not have had the Sommerswerd. However, if you lose any endurance points during the course of this combat, turn immediately to section 66. If we had met the Kalkoff before, we would know what we were dealing with. So, we are rolling in the plus 11 column, which means we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in 10 chance of losing endurance points, even at the highest combat ratio. Of the remaining 4, we have a 1 chance of inflicting 18 of its 28 endurance points, and a 3 chance of a total kill. Let's roll. A 7. A 7 would deal 18 damage, reducing the Kalkoff to 10 endurance points, and we suffer none ourselves, but we must then roll again. This time we roll a 1. Lone Wolf loses 3 endurance points, and the enemy loses 9. The barb of a Kalkoff's tongue holds a powerful venom with which it paralyzes its victims before devouring them. The venom takes only a few seconds to act. Stung by the barb, you quickly fade into unconsciousness. It is a sleep from which there will be no awakening. Your life and your mission ends here. A sentence every player of the series will doubtless be familiar with. So, if we had somehow succeeded in going 2 full combat rounds against the beast without damage, or had managed to slay it in 1, we would get to turn to this section, at which point You notice that the Kalkov has a blue triangle of stone on a chain around its neck. Suddenly you realise the significance of this strange amulet, and we would not have had to fight the barbarians for one. I prefer this route, fighting the Kalkov, but it is so unbelievably deadly that even with every single bonus we could have up to this point, it's just brutal. So fortunately, we met the barbarians earlier. It would be nice to imagine they ran away scared and one of them dropped his bluestone triangle, or it snagged on a corner or something as they left. Removing the bluestone triangle from around your neck. So Alice obviously moving heaven and hell to avoid an alternate reality in which we did not have a bluestone triangle at this point. Removing the bluestone triangle from around your neck, you press it into the granite wall. It fits perfectly. You immediately feel a tremor running through the ledge on which you are standing, followed by a grinding noise of stone upon stone. The door opens, but after it has opened less than 3 feet, it begins to close. Without a moment's hesitation, you dive into the fortress and the door crashes shut behind you. You may still keep the bluestone triangle. You need not erase it from your action chart. Now, the corridor in which you now stand is far warmer than the icy cavern outside. For the first time in many days, you can lower the hood of your cloak and remove your mittens without risking frostbite. You notice that the stone passage descends to a landing where another passage branches off to the east. Millar bowls hang at regular intervals along the arched ceiling, their unnatural light illuminating the carved walls. As you approach the landing, you notice an archway leading into a small room beyond. A strange sight meets your eyes. Ragged furs, pottery shards, and the debris of hundreds of years seem to have been thrown into this chamber. A large lever protrudes from the wall beside the archway. At this point, I will go open up the Mongoose adventure entitled something like Betrayal at Ikaya. Wolf. There you go. Oh, no, because it's not Lone Wolf D20, is it? It's the Lone Wolf multiplayer gamebook rules. The Corruption of Ikaya. And here, not quite here. So, this is the cavern where we faced the Crystal Frostwyrm. In this adventure, the Crystal Frostwyrm lives in this side cavern and comes out to attack. This is the chamber we see beside. As you approach the landing, you notice an archway leading into a small room beyond. A strange sight meets your eyes. So we can enter the room and investigate the contents, pull the lever, or explore eastwards along the passage. Okay. Do we have a compass? We do not have a compass. This could be east. I remember looking at this and the map vaguely matched up reasonably well with the adventure. So it might be fun to refer to it from time to time. I do believe there is a... Oh no, the Javak is here, isn't it? Javak's lair, yeah. And then they put some Doom Wolves in this entrance chamber. Door slides open on a gentle hiss, revealing a 20 by 30 room. Since the aspirants was blocked. converted the area into a kennel of a pair of trained doom wolves. For doom wolves, who has a presence with gas for pups. The contents of these chambers are different, but I think the layout is the same, and it might be fun to refer to it over the course of the remainder of the adventure, especially as there is a further map for the upper level of the palace. Looking at these maps, I would like to believe that they are not to scale. Not that I feel a scale is provided for these maps, but even in relative scales, this section here may be shorter, this section may be longer, but that the layout is approximately correct, even if the scale of the rooms to the length of the hallways is not entirely accurate. Yeah, could be fun to use this as we explore the castle, but I do also feel we've had our first episode be the journey across the snow, our second through the caverns, underneath the mountains and the plains, and then for our next episode we'll go into the ice palace itself. So I'm going to leave this episode here. I hope you've all enjoyed this one, and I'll look forward to seeing you all in the very next episode. I'll say goodbye for now, though. See you all soon. Cheerio, everyone.